On the road this morning, breakfast with Vossy and Brandy right here on the home of sport, SEN. Fantastic to be out and about today. Camden Lakeside, fresh air in the lungs. And we are here for the Brydens Lawyers Golf Day. You can come out and see it. All the players have gone out. So shotgun start. They've gone out to all parts of the course. We wish them well. Great service, great brands, great value. Now available in-store and online at Bingley. Better living every day. If you missed any of the first 2 hours of the show, you can catch up on the Breakfast with Vossy and Brandy podcast on Apple and Spotify, on Instagram as well. Give us a follow at Vossy Brandy SEN.
Yeah. One of our listeners who had, right from the get-go, when Ben Hunt was released from the Dragons, Miles has always said he's going to be a Rooster. And he says, boys, I can't reveal my sources, but the mail is solid. After the deal is done, I may be able to explain how I always knew that Hunt will be a Rooster.
How you always knew.
So he has. I remember very early, Miles was strong, said Hunt will be a Rooster. And even though the Roosters have, gone quiet, we haven't heard from the Roosters about
What
it.
did Trent Robinson say? What did Trent Robinson say? You had the quote this morning, a stunning quote.
The thing is, we've been quite clear about our squad for a while.
Our squad. Now. Just a few holes in the squad. So
well,
Kiri,
they're short. Yeah.
Manu,
Swali.
Now you add May to the list.
Yep.
If I missed someone, did someone else go there?
No, Manu.
Maria Hargreaves.
Of course.
Okay. Yes. I mean, but you're clear on your squad. That doesn't fill me with great hope, to be honest. There we go. Robbie Farrell was a guest last hour, and we led last hour with the news that the Singapore Rugby League has been launched. Can we ask Robbie if he's up for a comeback? Singapore needs some front rowers.
He's looking pretty fit.
You guys are just so negative. I'm just bringing a positive story, and all you've done is heap you-know-what on Singapore Rugby League.
Let's get positive and head down to Melbourne.
It is mellow, isn't it?
It is underwhelming. I think we need to change it. We've said that for the last 3 weeks. Well, that's what I said.
Now. From what it was Gerard Whateley calling an absolute, a pile of super moments, great moments. Yeah. And now we just play him, and all I can picture him is sitting under a tree with a little tequila and a sombrero. Gerard Whateley, welcome to Breakfast with Vossy and Brandy.
I actually think it sets the perfect tone for where we come from to this segment. So I'm totally comfortable with it. By next year, I might get one of those big hats and bring in my tacos. Yeah.
Jared, what's been your chat this week, early in the week, about cricket? It was miserable on Sunday, and as was the one day before that. Like it never looked like winning.
No,
never looked like winning.
The Perth game is the existential crisis. When is an Australian team not an Australian team? And that's when the first choice players pull out for what is notionally the decider in a series. So at that point, that series is reduced to content, isn't it? And it's content that we like. We like seeing Australia play, and white ball cricket does hold a place. Without any promotion whatsoever. We had 25,000 at the MCG, 21,000 in Adelaide, and 19,000 in Perth for a turgid affair. And then I'm told there's going to be 20,000 at the Gabba tomorrow night for the start of the T20 series. It's hard to put any stock in it. But I can't be critical. So I'm part of the, whether the problem or not, the benign neglect is I cannot criticise the Australian setup for prioritising this test series, which means everything, at the expense of a set of one-dayers which mean nothing. And that's the cold reality of it.
That's true.
They might as well call it the Who Cares Cup then. Thank heavens the SEN coverage is quality. And that's the thing. I mean, the audience is there on radio and on television, but why don't we just be upfront about it? You're right about content. The word content is exactly what it is. It is, and it's nothing more than that, Gerard, in our summer of cricket. It's content rather than a hard-fought series playing for a trophy. We're desperate to win.
And that's a pity, because all three formats need to be played across an Australian summer, and we want to see the Australian team in action. We don't just want them passing through our city for a test match. White ball cricket has always been a big part, but it's lost in whatever the modern the modern nexus of scheduling is. And, we're hearing from our audiences that the Big Bash has replaced that. It is the time to take the family to the cricket to see white ball cricket is the Big Bash.
Yep.
The problem was, it was the third and deciding game, and all of our first choice players were given an RDO. And then it's totally up to you how serious this is, but then the captain posted a photo from Coldplay while the team was getting annihilated in Perth.
Yeah.
Doesn't look good.
No, the optics.
Now, the perception.
Yes. Now, Gerard, Ed Cowan, boy oh boy, I wish I'd have come up with his data. It's a compelling case against Nathan McSweeney. Like, it's incredible what he put together, and I'll read it for our listener in case they weren't across. So basically, Ed has said, absolute gamble. It's a lottery. It's a shot in the dark having Nathan McSweeney open because it's not backed up by the stats. When you look at him and his efforts batting inside the first 10 overs, he has only 2 scores of over 50, 53 and 67 against New South Wales. His other scores, 22, 32, 10, duck, 12, 48, 36, 15, 20, 25, 11, duck, 7 and duck. Now, on all those figures, it's modest at best. And when he actually then opens for Australia A, he only makes 14 and 25, caught behind the wicket twice. Ed Cowan talks about the 45-degree angle bat and says, at the moment in his career, McSweeney doesn't have the technique nor the temperament to do it. It's a hell of a case. As I said to Brandy earlier, it's compelling from Cowan that McSweeney is not an opener, and this is a gamble. It's just a roll of the dice. Having taken that all on board, Gerard, where do you stand?
Well, so it depends what data you want to use, and that data is used well, and it's used to counter. So George Bailey made a virtue of the fact that McSweeney has been in early routinely for South Australia, but he didn't produce the numbers which suggest that he hasn't succeeded when that has happened. So that's an excellent follow-up. And Gideon Haigh had done similarly in the day that followed. George is actually with me at the top of my program today, so we'll be able to workshop some of this together. The other data point is the players who were in line, there were 4, weren't they? Is Nathan McSweeney outbatted them. And the numbers are, you cannot get around the numbers. Is the man who made the most runs in all the different circumstances has been picked. So that is very sound. And if you can't make the case for any of the 3 specialist openers, so you can make the case against everyone, but you've got to put somebody in to open the batting. The bit I'll disagree with on Ed is he referred to they're trying to find a generational player. They're not. They're trying to find a player for the start of this series to give Australia the best chance, who's in his best form. And they've chosen McSweeney, and I think they're right to do that. They're not trying to find an opener for the next 8 years here. They're trying to find an opener for the first 10 days of the series, and he is in the best form of the group who were contending.
Yeah, it's almost like the US presidential election. It's the race to the bottom. No, you could make an argument. It's Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. You could make an argument not to have either of them, or you could make an argument not to have any of those batsmen.
Yeah, but that was fake news.
Yeah, that's Gary Lee, Haji Pentelis, Bryden's lawyers, on behalf of Bancroft, Harris, Constas, for that analogy. You're talking about whack jobs as opposed to our cricketers trying to do their best. Back to you, Gerard.
So Ed said it's a guess. It's intuition. All of selecting is intuition. You look at the players and go, who's the most likely to give us the best chance here? So you have to change the parameters. We're not picking the opener for the next 8 years. We're picking the opener for the first 10 days of the series. And McSweeney is in the best form of the 4 who are in contention. And that's incontrovertible.
Can't argue that. You cannot argue that. Let's flip to the AFL. While our draw is still getting put through that Canadian computer. We just hasn't spat it out yet. Yeah. The AFL have come out with the gather round and also the opening round. Is everyone happy with what's happening and what they've announced?
No, but that's not surprising, is it?
Solid.
The full fixture comes tomorrow, which is an exciting day for lots of people. So it governs a lot of my life. So I probably should be more feeling a greater sense of anticipation than I do. So opening round is for the northern states. It is a very sound idea. It doesn't play well in the grassroots, where we don't get footy to start the season. We have to wait until round one. I like it. And it was naive to think that something that had finally been given to New South Wales and Queensland was going to be removed after 1 year. The AFL sort of created this oblique idea that maybe there would be a game in the heartland at the end of it, but that would dilute the concept. So that hasn't happened. I think they would have been better to just tell us that straight from the start. Gather round is your magic round, which is just such a brilliant week. So all to Adelaide. The climax of that is going to be Port Adelaide and Hawthorn, which draws on, the blood feud that exists now after, you might recall, the semi-final. Port Adelaide beat Hawthorn. Ken Hinkley has a pop at their young player, Jack Ginnivan, who'd put all his stuff on Instagram. And that was tremendous theatre, except that the AFL fined Ken Hinkley $20,000 and said that was conduct unbecoming, and now is heavily, heavily trading on it. So they should give Ken Hinkley his $20,000 back. But this is this is the greatest certainty of the fixture, that you put your most fiery game in the absolute biggest slot possible. But the big news of the morning is we've finally seen the light, lads, and we're going to join you on Thursday nights. 23
is that right?
20, we're going to have 23 Thursday night games. We've had half, and then we've stopped, despite the fact
very
there's
strange.
a huge audience for it, and you've proven that it works. So now we're going permanently to it, and we'll be much the better off for it in AFL land.
Now, I know this rumour's been around for a while. Actually, it might have been since they first started as a club, GWS, and a move to Canberra. Gerard, have you heard anything that it might be imminent?
It's more opinion than reality. The AFL won't fold its tent, probably ever, but certainly not for the next decade.
Right.
With Greater Western Sydney. You can make the case as to why that should happen, and there are plenty of people who believe it passionately, and it does get said, but it's not happening. That's not. The AFL won't fold its tent on the investment that it's made when it said it was a 40-year investment. They won't go for the sunk costs at this stage, I don't think.
All right. On the text, Phil has given us mail from Brisbane. He says there won't be a game at the Gabba tomorrow. It's been pelting down each evening for the last week.
Oh.
So he also went a little further, saying, what idiot schedules a night game in Brisbane this time of year? So there you go. You're getting lots of raps this morning, which is unusual, Gerard. And
unusual.
I'm not saying that disrespectfully. I'm saying there's always the negative. Someone will pick apart a comment. But this one, Morning VB, could listen to Gerard all morning, boys. Great insight into the cricket from the surfing night. Gerard Whateley just used the word incontrovertible. That is true. That is a confirmation.
Great word.
Great word.
Yeah.
Gerard always explains things so well. Now, there is one thing that you do have to explain that's raised by someone else, Gerard. How come Alex Carey was able to play in the one-dayer yesterday? Now, this is a great point.
It is.
So he plays a one-dayer yesterday for South Australia, keeps 45 overs, makes 75 or 63 balls. He's almost out in the middle for the entire game,
Poor
Gerard.
dear. Poor dear.
So how come the Australians got pulled out of the game on Sunday and Alex Carey can play on a Tuesday? How does that work?
So I'm not defending this, okay? So I'm not answerable for it. But Carey hasn't played the previous one days for Australia, so this is part of his preparation that he's chosen to be ready for the first test. The problem, as I understand it was the fixturing was the wrong way around. If they'd started in Perth, if the third and deciding game had been either in Melbourne or Sydney, I believe those first choice players would have played. It was the travel to Perth, go back, and then travel back to Perth for the test preparations that was viewed as the deal breaker. So Josh Hazlewood is playing in the Shield game, I think. Is it tomorrow? That's what I was told. So each player has chosen workload and preparation. I feel like this was a disconnect between head office and the team as to how this series was put together. And the problem was that the Perth travel was at the end, which is going to be then followed by Perth travel.
There we go. So it wasn't even Gerard's answer, but he handled it beautifully.
Yes, that's right, Gerard. Hey, by the way, just on the AFL draw now, so obviously we're not at war because if and when I say we, AFL v Rugby League, as much as Peter Volandis would like to keep poking the bear and that sort of thing, because surely you would realise that Rugby League is away in Vegas the weekend before you are going to kick off your round. So, the Sydney teams could have clean air and play their opening matches of the season in a city that has no rugby league. It's all in Vegas on that Sunday. And the Swans and the Giants and whoever else, Brisbane, Gold Coast, they could have all played on a weekend where there is zero rugby league. Was that not contemplated? You could go a week earlier with half the draw?
I think the week earlier is challenging, but I also think the AFL's not trying to steal anything from rugby league here, as the Swans will sell out their game regardless, and the Giants will actually sell out their game against Collingwood. And I could probably make the case to you, Vossy, that Vegas weekend is so successful and so all-encompassing that it would be hard to get your head above the parapet anyway. You're probably better to slide in after that's happened. The purpose of playing these games is not to steal rugby league fans, it's to get in the paper and hey, we're going too. Elbows out, we're fighting for our space. And I reckon that would be very hard to do in that Vegas build-up where, quite rightly, it
suffocates everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, well, I can live with all of that. Just so we tick every box. We clear up everything here today. And there we go. You've got your answer on Alex Kerry. We're talking about Josh Hazelwood and all things. I'm wondering whether anything else from you, Gerard, this morning around your program in Melbourne. We had this story where potential rule change. It reared its head yesterday. It was a wildfire. It just went berserk. We're still taking calls on it today. That it's almost like it was just incredible. Would the same thing happen in the AFL if someone of some authority rumoured that something was going to happen?
Less interchange or
something. Would you get the same reaction in an off season, like in November, December, as we've had over the last 24 hours? Because it's been extraordinary.
Nothing lights the fuse like rule changes or just the tiniest little adjustment. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a memo which was floating, it was two clubs going, what's your view on making small amendments here? So, for instance, there's a 30-second shot clock to start your approach to goal. What if that was reduced to 20 seconds? How would you feel about that? The much bigger issue is should there be a sub, 4 interchange plus a sub, or 5 interchange and no sub, which the players are all in on, but the league is sticking with the sub. And then, just all the little things in between that they obsess the minds. And my favourite genre of fan is the one who goes, leave the game alone, except make this change, the one I passionately believe in, which I love. I think at this time of year, every good idea should be put on the table, analysed and debated, and just seeing what might benefit the game.
Yeah,
well, we're at Camden Lakeside, Gerard, but great coverage of all topics this morning. Have a good show.
Off the stick between the two of you, who would win the round of golf?
Well, I'd have to play one-handed. I'll back myself. I could beat him. I'd beat him.
Gerard, not
beat
a
him
chance.
With one hand tied behind my back. And Gerard, New South Wales v South Australia does start tomorrow in the Sheffield Shield. Have a great show there in Melbourne today.
Terrific. Thank you.
Gerard Whateley right here on Breakfast with Vossy and Brandy, proudly brought to you by Bryden's Lawyers and proudly from the Camden Lakeside, where golf course where we are hosting the Bryden's Lawyers Golf Day, raising money for the Leukemia Foundation. Come out and just, too late to come and play golf, but just come along and just appreciate the ambience and watch the show.